So, any doubts or anything like regarding the prototyping tools or anything? You're able to try anything?
Yeah, no question so far. I kind of made some progress with Adobe XD,
Okay.
but not with the Fiori stencil. You know.
Oh,
I was able to find all the buttons and everything, so that's a progress. But
okay.
when you drag and drop the layout, right? I was searching
Mhm.
for layout and drag and drop it. It's still showing very small. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, but I got a feel of it,
Mhm.
um, especially I didn't even know Adobe XD existed. So
No, I think one of the major problem we see is we have something called locked object. Okay, you can lock individual elements. So locking individual elements will allow you to play more flexible in Adobe XD. Okay, in even Azure we have a locking, etc. I think in build I don't haven't seen locking. So locking, when I say just how we in Word, etc., foreground and background, how we can freeze, right? So all the items. So you can select the object and you can select click on a lock object. Then it will be fixed. Then you can drag and drop other elements. Okay. So generally that is one just like for it's like Photoshop tools itself. So Adobe XD, all everything are there more of like subset of that Photoshop tool itself.
mm,
So Adobe XD, if you are following Adobe XD also anything, it's fine. Only thing is you have to little bit of one or two features we have to get used to it.
mm.
Most of those all are like drag and drop, so it all again boils down to how we design. If you need one more, we have something called Behance.
Because Adobe XD, when you open it, it shows like three white spaces, and three white spaces are like different sizes. So if
Correct.
you would try to drag and drop, some components that doesn't fit there, it's not going to take it, you know. But so things like that. So it takes a lot of time to learn it before
Uh,
we start using it. Looks like it.
Yeah, 2 3 days at least you should get used to the tool, like, because initially whenever we try it, it is not very friendly. At least it will not have that walk to get also. What
Mm-hmm.
Adobe XD does is it gives you either web application or mobile. You have to select the form factor, just like paint tool, etc. So the form factor, because of that, if there we have to design it separately for mobile and desktop in that
And
screen
also,
set set forms.
these things are shown more as a thumbnail, and that is the main issue because you try to drag and drop a layout, into it. I just see like a thumbnail version, and I try
Correct.
to expand it, and then it's such a waste of time.
You have to
Um,
use hand tool actually. Hand tool will be there. So hand tool, what it does is hand tool, using hand tool, if you are having a touch laptop, then you can zoom it, zoom out. Yeah, or if not, you have to use your mouse to, your mouse button, you have to move up and move down. So that only individual object will be, the thumbnail will be highlighted. I mean, you have to use, I said right, lock, you have to lock it. Then you have to, then it will be fixed to only one layout. See, if you, idea is like interactions, how we are mapping it. Even in Adobe XD also, we can map each of the elements. So their idea was all they'll use as a thumbnails and like this way thumbnails, and you can link it, etc. In this case, all you have to do is you have to zoom it this way. So you have to
mm,
lock this particular individual object. Then you can play around in this area. Okay.
mm.
So that's how the idea of it. I think it's perfectly fine. On day one, day two, etc. We will get used to those tools. But as we try to do at least one use case, so just try to play around with any of the
Mm.
simple use case first, so that
Yeah.
we'll know. Okay, these are the tools options we have, etc. And try to do a simple interaction. So once we have one something small ready, then gradually when we try to look around the options around there, then we can build more fancy and more you know useful one. So our idea is idea we should be able to translate into some skeleton, so wireframe as such. So that is
Yeah.
the whole motto of this prototyping tool, because they'll allow us to understand, okay, and you can write which control to use to design this.
I'll post a picture of what I'm seeing. Not to take too much time on this, but just so you can relate to what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Here, I just posted it. So found like a layout tab on the left side, right? And I'm
Okay.
trying to drag that first one into it, and look how it's like.
Okay. See,
So.
I think here it is like individual elements. So in this case, these are like you have selected one. I think you have to select first layout, bigger layout, and for the first one, if you see any of this, you have to drag and drop this particular item.
Mm,
So these are
yeah,
like individual buttons, etc. Collection kind of it will be there.
got it. So
Okay.
I think
So
that I will search for it, to see some layout that is available, and then try to
sure.
see if I can use it.
Yeah, if you want, I can prepare one in a Adobe Exchange. I can share you that file. You can try to use that as at least as a
Mm,
base one
mm,
to further modify, etc. Because at least if not, we'll have one. Let me know once you try it once. Because if you then based on that you'll have exact questions, because if I try to do also again it will be like I might be doing it pretty easily, but again you might be struggling it. So just let me know the areas where you are stuck as well. So Adobe
mm-hmm.
XD, I'll share one reference so you can use that as reference. Just you have to import, then you'll be able to have a reference, so you can see all the elements how they got added, etc.
Sure.
So that will do.
Mm,
Okay, so say if you are struggling with these tools, there are like more advanced way. So Behance, etc. These are the places where lots of other UX designers they post their ideas. Suppose if you, I mean, these are not meant for SAP Fiori, just regular UX design ideas as such. So if you try to see here, they'll try to okay here calculate etc. They are trying to design some. You can take some web projects. Okay, take some.
can I ask a generic question, please?
Yes, sure, sure.
Um, I just wanted to know your view on um, product managers.
Okay.
Do
I mean,
you think
what exactly you wanted to understand about, I mean, product manager?
so?
You wanted
Product
to aim for that
managers.
role, or you're trying?
No, I just see that when we talk about UI UX, right?
Mhm,
And if you're on the, I see a lot of presentations
mhm.
usually done by the so-called product manager. So it's a new field that is coming up, right? I mean, back in our days, it's usually like project managers or IT managers, but never heard about product manager much, at least in
It's
my lifetime. So I
now
just
actually
wanted to
what
see.
they it's because the concept of agile, in agile they have scrum master separate and product owner separate. Okay, and they have an architect along. See how you see these are like agile teams. In agile teams, everybody has to wear the hat of developer, tester, everything. See,
Mm,
so in a see these are like agile teams. So in agile teams, what they try to do is today if I am not there, my team should be able to do in my absence as well. So they'll try to shuffle among all. So what product owner does is, so I'll just tell you this is I mean good to know. Just I'll not spend much time, but you'll know. So in
mm,
agile, idea is every day we should be able to spend some time in understanding. Every whole team member should understand what is going on, what we are trying to build the use case around, or where we are, etc. So in agile teams, product owner is one who will identify what use case we have to work on now. Okay, he'll drive
so
the
is the
scenarios,
person the
etc.
manager
There is no project manager as such here in agile.
or
Okay.
product manager?
Yeah, see, these are the different names they keep around. So if there are like
Mm,
multiple product owners, like product owner, scrum master, etc., he will be called as product manager.
mm, mm,
So
mm,
it's like you are they're like multiple teams. If there are two agile teams, then he's managing two agile teams. Then he's called as project manager, a product manager.
mm.
Okay. So what we're trying to say is we have an agile team one where he has a product owner. He takes the identifies what use case now we have to work on. Okay,
Mm,
and Scrum Master is one. He tries to build around story points. Okay, story
Mhm.
point in the sense what all he'll break down this use case into many story points. Okay, around 100 or something he'll story points. And rest of the team members are, team members are like either developers or they're part of agile team. So everybody can choose any of the story points in this month. They call it as sprints. Okay, so
Yes,
Scrum Master will every now and then he'll arrange a sprint where he'll say that in this like there could be different agile ways. Some people have weekly release, some will have fortnight and monthly release as such. So based on the their internal practice, so they'll set up. Suppose we assume that there's a monthly sprint, so in this month, what all activities should we do? They'll arrange a meeting and they'll all the team they'll try to pick individual story points. Okay, I'll work on this, and they'll discuss what are the backlogs. So if last sprint any slippage is there, so they'll identify the backlogs, and everybody will pick their own story points and they'll work in this particular month. So everybody will ensure that using Jira tool, etc. They'll track where we are, etc. So Scrum Master organizes the whole things. This product owner ensures that these are the use cases customer is asking, and he'll give us, regular monitoring of whole how things are going, etc. Along the time. So here idea is everybody has to contribute. Product owner also every day in the agile meeting in Scrum, they call it a Scrum meeting. So every day they have, or in a weekly twice, or they'll arrange a quick stand up. So everybody will stand around the table and they'll discuss. This is whatever product owner has done in that week. He'll answer to the team saying this is what the new use case, etc. Kind meetings I had. So he'll share what's going on so that innovation happens continuously. Okay. So even the Scrum Master also he'll try to say, okay, these are the things have completed, and these many people, these are the things got stuck. So more of a project manager here, Scrum Master will try to bridge the gap of time slippages. If anything, we are too much of delay happening, etc. He'll highlight red flags, and
Mm.
the individual teams they'll try to focus on okay, these things I am stuck, so can anybody assist, then somebody else in the team will be able to assist him. So it's like everybody, there's no dependence on anybody will be able to answer at a given point that what's happening in the team, and everybody can equally contribute to the progress of our use case.
And so
Okay.
the backlog means uh, because you're using the exact same words I'm seeing in these PowerPoints, and also first of all it's very impressive, and second, I've never heard about backlog, per se.
Okay.
So
What backlog is? Suppose today we are building this one up, say our illustration cell. So
mm,
one application called manage products, etc. And it could be, see, there could be many technologies involved. One, there could be backend team, there could be testers, there could be many other things going on. But last release, we were planning to introduce some feature called assume, let's say for example, some exporting, etc. Okay, exporting the complete content, etc. So somehow this feature was not ready. Now sprint, during the sprint, etc. review everything. When we said this was red flag, and because of some constraint, it got stuck. Now when new sprint started, that means the next month. Now this will be picked up this item along with a new set of again suppose some 30 new story points were identified. So it's like incremental development. So for this use case, some new changes product owner will say this has been showcased to customer. Now customer we got this new feedback. So start 30 new features they are expecting us to build now in this particular sprint. Then again, while then team will raise, Scrum Master will raise it. There is an export functionality which was agreed upon in the previous release. That backlog item still exists, so they'll include this as their total 31 story points. It becomes so that's how the older points which are pending or etc. Those they call it as backlog.
got it.
So this is, many versions of Agile also will be there. According to internal teams, they'll modify, but base Agile is this is how the team consists of, and this is the whole.
And the
Say,
product manager manages the whole team, right?
so he, like you have now in this case you have two Agile teams. So Agile team project manager here, product manager or whatever they call it, they'll generally manage multiple Agile teams. So
Mm,
you there could be one team with this same set of, there could be another team they are working on different set of
mm,
area all. So all this
mm.
collectively one who manages is called generally product manager.
Got it. Because when I read about wireframing these days, right, which is a terminology that you remember you used in the last class as well, and something that I hear also used in my workplace, especially with the Fiori, in place. So I was reading about it, and that's why everything connects to like product manager, product manager. So I'm like, what is this position, right? I've never really heard about it much. So that's why I wanted to understand, like, from
Yes.
a holistic perspective, where this. So thank you
So
for explaining that.
these are like, because when these practices around, I have worked in different places, but
Mm,
what I culture I liked was this was in SAP Labs they are also following the same kind of structure. Okay,
mm,
SAP is completely, they give complete flexibility. So what their aim is, if you have already mastered in Fury area and you are not interested in working anymore, so you need not to, you can say that I have already worked in last sprint in this particular area. Now I want to work on some ABAP area, or I want to work on Java area. So they can
mm,
choose to upskill in different area.
mm,
Okay, they give the flexibility to the team. So okay,
mm,
you wanted to work in new area, then you can pick it up. So that's
mm,
how they are like. See, if you are bored with some activity, Agile gives you a chance to work in different area. And very soon, if you have worked 2 3 scenarios, you'll be I mean, you will be made a product owner immediately,
mm,
and
mm,
they'll move on to different role and etc. This is
mm,
just to increase. See, if everybody is all the time 6 months down the line, everybody knows what's happening with this product. So
mm,
this product owner who is handling this particular use case etc., he can go to some other use case. Okay, now within the team someone can become the product owner now, because they
mm.
know everything about the product now,
Got
because
it,
they have
got it,
been
got it.
participating in the whole agile teams. So
Mm,
there's no dependency around. Okay. And the Scrum Master can manage multiple use cases, multiple product owners also he can manage. So Scrum Master generally may not be, he'll be duplicating, and he'll be, common across multiple agile teams also.
mm,
It's similar to like our traditional project manager, how it used to be. They call it here more like a Scrum Master. He's the one
mm.
who will organize regular meetings. He'll ensure that we are not missing the deadlines. We are not, in sync with our expectations.
Yeah, I just wish that developers start taking more and more leadership roles,
Correct.
instead of going underneath some people who haven't probably coded one line of code, like even a hello world,
Yes.
and then taking directions from such folks, right? So I'm not a personally a big fan of this new like section they created called product manager, project manager. you
Things
know.
are changing actually. So many things are changing. Even the way, if because I'm even recently have been exploring other new shifts because of COVID exclusively.
Oh, mm,
We are hang virtual. See, there are no like these all are like in person. And they used to do these things. Okay. So there is a you cannot actually do everything now. Everything has to be done virtual as well. So certain things are a little bit of changing as well.
mm,
There,
mm.
if you have heard of the concept of DevOps,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
DevOps is very much now widely used if you are using all the cloud products or etc. In
Mm,
general. It's not only
mm,
cloud products, but DevOps in SAP actually, if you ask me, it doesn't. It's very old approaches still. Okay,
mm,
it's good. Solution manager, GRAM, etc. The way they manage, etc. It's good, but DevOps current way it is very too much of what we call it is very not very smooth the process or life cycle. So DevOps, in general, what it means is the amount of time taken to from building a product to releasing to the end customer. So that life cycle they call it as DevOps. So it's like we have to deploy it into the server, we have to run it. If you wanted to release etc any feature, least amount of time it has to take. So DevOps ensures that there is like a smooth way we can release to the any solution to end users. Okay.
mm,
So that is the whole object of DevOps. So there's like chain of tools around. So now we have maybe it's will be very deviating. I'll not spend too much time. If you are interested,
Sure.
then we talk about it. So we have something called containerization, etc. So these are exclusively meant for see in now if you are using any cloud product, anything, so they inbuilt come with lots of tools. Okay, lots of tools in the sense you might be having .NET projects, you might be having SAP projects. All together, if you are managing it, then DevOps team can manage in irrespective of the technology stack, they can manage the release cycle independently.
Hmm.
Okay, so DevOps is something like now in SAP basis how we call it is. So basis are like they are go-to guys who will manage all the deployments or any if you any server etc RFC connection missing failing, if it is SAP
Hmm.
server is down, we'll just reach out to basis team. They'll patch up our systems. So up to date SAP now we have seen the version what SAP UFA version we need.
Hmm.
So they'll update the system servers manually. Now in the cloud you need not to update. Everything is managed by the host provider. So if you're in AWS manages all the softwares are up to date or not. So there is no role for SAP basis at all in the cloud space.
Hmm.
Okay, there comes the role of DevOps. In DevOps, what we do is you not only manage SAP now, you'll manage any technology stack. So they'll have a predefined flow of how to do things. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's how the DevOps is gaining popularity for infrastructure management or for managing the um, application. So this is not related to developer as such, but it's like new way of doing things for mixes. It has even on-premise also there we have it. Okay, I'll show you one some information on that. Okay, we'll move on to our class today.
Oh,
So
sure, sure. I'm so
okay,
sorry.
then like many more things are there. You can
No
definitely
problem.
ask me.
Yeah.
We can
But I
probably
got the answer to the, question I asked. Thank you so much.
sure. So it might be available. See, today this is popular. Tomorrow there could be
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. That's the world we are heading to now.
Correct. So there is one more tool called this is something recently my brother actually he suggested me and he's trying to build uh, some other application. So Figma is like
Oh yeah,
online
I heard about
what
Figma. Yes, yes. This
so
is this is what I got it from that product manager presentation, Figma.
right.
Twitter uses this Figma.
Oh, is it okay?
Yeah.
So actually my brother he's studying CSE and he was trying to build some use cases. So he was sharing me the templates and he was asking me to review how the design etc.
Oh.
So when I actually looked at it, so it's the same interactions, but more if you're struggling with Adobe XD, you can probably use it. So it has all the things which we wanted to do there. Okay,
Mm,
maybe
mm,
more user friendly. So see, we may not be officially customer unless they have a license. We should not use it for productive purposes. Okay,
mm,
so any of these tools, even Adobe XD or for that matter anything, for minimalistic use case you can use, but without license for productive cases anywhere you cannot publicly share those content. If within
mm,
internally you can use any of these tools without product license, we are not supposed to ideally
mm,
share across with larger audience. But for our cases, to understand how to design wireframe, etc., we are learning. See, irrespective of tool, always keep in mind, don't stick to the tool features because customer may not have the same. He might be using altogether different because over the time I have seen different customers using different design tools. Okay,
mm,
all we focus is our idea. How do we present using the tool? That's it. We should not get too much of comfortable with the tool as well.
mm,
So you can try this and so like different tools are you here also there are like many people who have designed it and they have used different tools. Okay, you can we can see here web designs etc. I think these are XD projects. So all with Adobe XD how they have designed you can check some sample applications this as well. So here how they use the tools etc. they'll explain. And this design which you are seeing here all these designs are built using Adobe XD. Okay. Maybe you can check some more applications, designs, etc. How they're building. Maybe it will give you some idea.
mm.
Okay, so this is some place where you can check for some project, some designers who have designed in Adobe XD, etc. Which tool you want to use. All ideas will get it. Ideas for new design.
Got it.
And this Figma is, I think, you're already familiar. So if you wanted a more, a simple UX tool, you can try this kind of. Okay, so I'll just go back to, I think, oops, I have opened and I have closed. Okay, fine. So I think finally what we understood is, uh, with Discord we have persona, then comes you know uh, that's what wireframe comes into, prototype. So prototype, literally, like, we design this prototype. So once we have the prototype, now we'll start building the application, right? So I'm going to our here I have, so in this case, two applications we have. So one is report and then manage protects. So this is our first use case where we'll try to, build in our application. For building this application, so in this case I have already prepared it. So last time we have built using our login page, some m table, etc. Now we are trying to relate it with a use case. Here I have tried to um, add some of the base features, etc. And
Mm,
I try to use last time we have used export to CSV, but now I'm trying to use spreadsheet control, where
mm,
it will come with, with nice progress, etc. And now it's trying to export the file. So a sales report objective is, we allow users to look at all the which products got, who is the supplying, what's the how the sales, etc. for individual products. All this information we'll be able to see, and we can export that records, and they can search using the tool as well. Okay, so we'll try to see how we are we have designed this whole design. Now they can, if they want to share across in a mail, etc. Now they can share this file. It will tell them about individual product, who is this particular product, who is a supplier to it, and at what price, etc. We are, this is being sold. Okay, this is
mm,
just a simple example we are trying to take. So idea here is, so we should be able to use such the products. Now here, FT 1002. So we should be able to search the products, and we should be able to download the product, etc. Right. So this is our old login page itself. In that itself, I just try to tweak around and change some of the functionalities around. Um, so this is our first use case. So here we are able to achieve the desired task of sales report, where any number of columns, etc. we have. So we have to remember our tables comparison, etc. So if the number of columns, etc. are less than 8, we can stick with our M table. Else we have to, if more records, etc. we have to use our grid table.
mm,
Now in our second example, what we'll try to do is, now, for the managing the viewing the products, etc. So for the viewing products, I will take this particular flexible layout design, and we'll try to design for managing the products. So idea is, we have to see the supplier information, and then customer information, etc. So currently in this application, we do not have customer information, only product and supplier information we have. So whom to ship this particular product, etc. Those information we'll try to show in view products. So for that, this is how we'll have it. So for this case here, we have used freestyle template. You can choose any of the, if you want to, you can choose worklist application also. But here we have started with freestyle, and then we have designed it. Whereas here we have used master detail or the flexible layout. So if you see here, the orders would be displayed, list of orders. Then the moment they select order, it becomes a flexible layout, and it comes with each details of the product. So whether this product has been delivered or not, status we are able to show, and product ID, and then the cost of the product, and more details on the header we are showing, whether where what is the status of the order, etc. And further we are showing here below supply details, and the delivery status, and then customer details. So we are trying to use multiple controls here. So our idea is, in this use case, as a scenario, here objective is to search the records and to export and share it in the mail, etc. Here objective is to identify how quickly we can deliver this product. So we are showing the tracking information, where order has been received, whether a supplier has been confirmation, etc. So whether it has been delivered or not, we are tracking it. Here also we are using all the basic sorting, filtering, etc. And we are trying to use an different control. Here I have used M table, and for the customer details I have used a grid table. So this is a grid table, if you notice it. So we can play around with individual fields. So, and here I have used dual tables here. One has customer information and other has the supplier information. So idea is uh, to play around with different UI controls, etc. In terms of an use case. So we have a use case where we have to, for the finance team, they'll manage sales report, and the manufacturing team, they'll track the delivery of the products, etc. So let's see, how we have built this. Both axes we'll try to understand in detail, right? So this is the objective we are going to discuss in this, or as part of our first use case. So first and foremost, in order to build this, you can just plainly pick it up freestyle template. So you can open your application generator and select for the first use case. So sales report. Easiest way would be you can pick it a work list report, or if you want to try it out from the scratch, you can use freestyle template as well. It's taking a time. Yes. So do not use Fury elements, because Fury elements we cannot actually make any changes. So those are meant for auto generation of code. So in this case, if you see, either you can pick it as worklist application for your first use case, and for the second use case you can pick it up master detail application template, right? So these will help you. If you wanted to try it completely from scratch, you can pick this scenario as well. Okay. Now we'll be choosing this worklist application. Then you can select here. So here, if you are using Visual Studio Code, use Connect to OData service as an option. And if you are in BAS, you can use Connect to SAP system, as we have defined all our ESY destination, etc. in our cloud itself already. So in this case, I'm using Visual Studio Code, so I'm using Connect to OData service. And for this application, I'm using GW Basic. And so GW Basic is a service we are using here. Okay. So sales report. Let me double check, because I have been using different services. Yeah, GW Basic. So in this case, I have used GW Basic. So, and for the managed products, okay, well, I'll talk about later. Let's not confuse. So for the sales report, so now we are using this particular service. Okay, I'll copy this URL. Template wizard, we'll just key in this. Oh, sorry. So we just log into our using our ESY credentials, and then we are good to choose. So if you notice the application here, so meanwhile it configures. If you see here, what we try to do is we are trying to map product details, etc. So we can go here and we can try to uh, view the details here as well. So first and foremost, always whenever we have to look at the data. Then we have to look at our wireframe. So which element we wanted to view at corresponding area, we have to first analyze it. Then we can select the right options in our wizard. So in the wizard, when it tries to ask for what is object header, we have to select, what is object number, we have to select. So first of all, unless we look at the data, we will not be able to understand which fields to map as a key field. So in this case, I have selected products entity set, and within the products entity set, I have selected product as a product ID as the key. So I have to select product ID as a key field for this to this is unique in our case. So product ID is unique. So for that, here have picked the product set. So this is how we have to first open the service. Then we'll explore the details under this particular each entity. So if we want it now, we are planning to show sales report. So if I have selected product set, and I could see that product ID as ARFB. So we could see the same details here, right?
Mm.
ARFB, first office line, etc. So first we should identify that this is how the information exists, and this is what we are trying to present it. So we should visualize that this is what we wanted to see as a first row. So once we
Is
have
it
identified it,
is it here that we should be trying to use Postman or those extensions that you were talking about?
we should use Postman, etc., or you can use browser tool as well. But
Mm.
Postman gives you more flexibility. So I'll in subsequent access, I'll show you all the CRUD operations as well. How do we
Okay.
delete a record? So now we are just trying to understand the bindings. Once we understand all types of bindings, etc., then it will be easy for us to delete a record. Now we are not modifying the records at all. If you
Mm.
see,
Mm.
only doing all the bindings, etc.
Mm.
So once we understand how do we do all types of bindings, etc., then we'll start modifying these records. Now I'm not actually messing up this existing design, because if you it will be a different set of queries, etc., we have to write. Okay. So in this exercise, we'll try to understand different types of bindings. I'll walk you through around there are like 6 to 7 types of bindings we use. Okay, I'll try to explain which one to use at which case. Then, as an iteration to this, we'll try to do CRUD operations on top of this table Excel. Then we'll be able to change this product ID. We'll be able to change this data altogether, everything as well. Okay, programmatically. Okay, so that is the objective. Now, Postman helps you to, without actually using a UI, directly you can do delete operation, etc. Here in browser, it doesn't give you option to delete, etc. Right? So here you can only view the data, whereas Postman allows you to delete as well. Okay, so that's the advantage of these tools. So if you see there you'll have for all web projects. When I say they have, they'll follow REST protocol. What is REST is, HTTP based application all will have 4 kinds of methods. One we call get, that is nothing but for read only, so only for the viewing the documents. And another we call it as post. Post means we are submitting to the request to the database. That means we are updating the records. Another we have something called put. Put means we are updating the records. That means you are not creating, but you are updating it. For the first time we are doing it, we call it as create. For that we use post. If you are modifying the existing record, then we call it as put. That means update. Then we have something called delete request. Delete is to delete the record in it. So I'll go there. Maybe you are might be already familiar. So if you see, these are the requests we use. So now all we are using browser you can do is only get request you can do. By default, here we are reading, right? This is read only data. This we call it as get request in REST terminology. Okay, so any web application uses GET request to fetch the pages, HTML pages, or any other. We have a server, we have a DB, we have to request it to send us this information. Then in REST terminology, what we call it as? We call it as a GET request. So now using browser, we can do only GET request. We cannot do post, delete, etc. So to do this, we need a tool like Postman, etc. Got it? So here you can all the most simple way if you have to understand this. So REST is nothing but how the in browser, etc. REST client also what we say is nothing but RESTful applications. They say they're like stateless protocol. HTTP, you over the HTTP, if you're doing any create, update, delete, etc., then we call it as a REST. That's it in a simple terminology if you ask me. Okay, this keyword is of least importance to us, but this is what is more important to us. So we are already familiar, like CRUD, like create, okay, read, okay, update. So be it any programming language, for everywhere we have these basic operations. Either we have to create a fresh record into on that means we are creating a new record in the DB, or we are reading data from the DB, or we are modifying that existing data, or we are deleting a data, right? So equivalent in the programmatic way is, for create we call it as post, for read we call it as get, and for update we call it as put, and for delete we call it as delete. Clear? So CRUD operations, whenever we are doing it, you can keep it this as a thumb rule. So equivalent, when you have to we'll use a manual payload. I'll try to tell you how to add a payload and how do we test, etc. We have to construct our syntax such a way that we can we have to add a payload here. So once we add a payload here, we'll be able to test as well. Okay, so those we'll try to do. These have advanced options, but we are not going to use all these things as such. Okay, so they're like more advanced features of REST, but traditional way we use this. Patch is also sometimes used. It's similar to put, but where only incremental changes if you want to update. That means not all records. So put will update all the records. Patch will update only the you know which, suppose you are selecting multiple table rows items, in that only one row got modified, then you need not to update all the records once again. Put will update every record, whereas patch will update only single record which got modified. You're able to relate, I mean, the context here.
Yeah, like like I'm trying to relate with the above syntaxes that we use, like append.
Correct.
Um, yeah.
It's the same. It's the same. So anywhere it is the same. So only thing is you use different approaches. That's it. So it's the same completely. Right. So that is good to understand. So that is very much important as well. Now I think I'll just get back here where,
These days they say like CRUD queue, right?
yes, that query. So you can, it's a read only. So people now use filter query. They call it as a query. So if you want to add CRUD queue, you can use as a query.
But it is the queue is actually R, right?
Yes. See here, what they mean by is read operation is direct. You're reading without any adding any queries here. So this is your query. So we are trying to add some filter query, right? So further we are refining it. It's the same. If you are comfortable in in this case, now if I want to filter this based on if you see here, uh, me if I filter this based on products itself. So if here we have lots of records, right? So in this, if we are filtering it using some query, like only refine, which has a category of files and binders. So I can use a query like this way. Question, for filter category files and binders. So generally, this is how we'll do it. Query. So once you query it, what happens is this whole records, how many records are there, they'll get further refined. Okay.
Mm,
So this is what they call it as query.
okay.
In the responses. I consider it as a read itself. So if you wanted to consider differently, we can consider as query as well. So it's some people they try to define it as a separate element altogether. I think this has to be constructed correctly. So idea is if you apply any of the filter commands, etc., then the filter data they call it as query. Okay. Now how we use the search, etc. So you can use this as well. It's you're free to consider. So this is how we have it. Clear?
Yeah. Thank
This
you.
is one topic. So here, what we are trying to do is now we have to first and foremost thing we have to do is we have to pick one service. Oops. Yes. So anytime whenever we design application, now we have to visualize this particular data here. So once we have visualized that this is the row we are trying to map there, then now we are clear that this is the structure we are intended to build. Now we have to look at one more parameter called metadata. So metadata clearly tells you what associations we have and what navigations we have and what are the key fields. So here we have identified the product set is the one which we are trying to map. So in this, if you see, there are like lots of what do you call, entities out there. So business partner. So what we have used is product entity set, right? So product set we have used. So this is the entity. So if you see, the key field here is product ID. So you have to make sure that you have to use this product ID only, because only then we'll be able to drill down the data, etc. And this is a key property. If you see key field, it mentions. So this is a key property, and other fields, these many fields we have in this particular entity set. And if you see whether it CRUD operation we can perform or not, along with each field, it will be mentioned whether we can filter that field or not. If you see here, this is a string type field, data type is string, and it cannot be nullable false. That means it cannot be blank. It has to be some value. So if you are fetching any record without, because key field, it cannot be blank, it has to be a value. So this metadata gives us all the information about the entity set. So max length 10. So we'll use a expression binding to restrict users from entering beyond 10 digits. So by default, when you're designing data elements, etc., you'll set some field max length, data type limits, etc. So in UI as well, we can use these particular limits as part of our UI validation. So I'll tell you how we'll do this as well. So in this case, for this product ID, the max length allowed is only 10 digits. And Unicode false. So Unicode is like other in the text which we use, non-English characters are supported or not. So this says like Unicode as false means it doesn't support. It doesn't support Japanese, etc. So if you say it as true, then it supports Japanese, all the world, or whichever follow UTF-8 we call it as, or latest is UTF-16. So these are like different languages in which we can use the application. Okay, so if this is turned to true, then you can this particular field can hold different values, because our DB supports or not. In this case, DB does not support beyond English characters. Okay, and this is a label. And if annotation if we use annotations also uses this particular metadata, and it will automatically build our application. So it all relies on this particular boundary limits. Okay, that's how the annotations Fiori element applications works. But whereas in our freestyle application, we do make use of this information, and manually we'll try to apply these limits in our application. So how do we apply, etc., I'll explain in our exercise. So if you identify more here, what are fields we have? For some fields, if you see here, something like in this case description language, you could see fields like creatable false, updatable false, sortable, filterable. That means this field you can create a request. While creating a request, entering description, etc., is required. So if it is true, if you say it's true, then it supports CRUD operations. Okay, that means we can modify this field data. Whereas ID field you cannot modify because it's a key field. We have it should be unique, and based on this we can subsequently we can modify rest of the details. So this is not modifiable. You're able to relate, right? So what you're trying to say is CRUD operation supported, or how do we know? You can check the metadata, you can come and check the field whether it supports filtering or not. Now if I try to use filter based on description, it doesn't support because it is turned off. If you see here, it says as I think for this there is no field as such, but here we will see find some field which says filterable false as well. Yeah, if you see for description language, it says filterable as false. So if I try to filter, use a filter command like how we try to use, it doesn't work because it is turned off. Okay. So we can come to know whether why if filtering is not working, why sorting is working. One thing you have to check is you have to come to check in metadata whether it has been enabled on. In SCGW, you have to just do a tick mark, then it will be automatically enabled for filtering, etc. Okay. So this is one information we have to look. So next information is we have something called associations. So in OData, each entity, this is like your parent table. So this table has a foreign key. So foreign key in the sense the child table. So what is the child table? So from products we can navigate to the supplier table. So this navigation property indicates that there is an association. For each product we can view the supplier information by navigating using this property, navigation property. Okay, so to supplier is the navigation, and then we have one more called sales or line items as another navigation. So two levels of data we can drill down. So this table information is primary table, and this is a foreign key table. We can, using this navigation, we can read all the supplier information, and using this another navigation we can read all the sales order items as well. So metadata tells us which all elements we can use, etc. Right, so now we identified all the key elements of it. Now when we come back to our application, so here now we know object collection. Now we have to select product set because that's what we are intended to do. Now we are, now what is the key for that product set? From the there we came to know that product ID is the key, right? So you're able to relate now. So because we identified those fields there, now we know this is a product set we have to select as object collection, and key is product ID, and the corresponding fields, which fields we earn. So object ID. When you say object ID, the moment you click on this application, if I click on this row, etc. So further when we try to display details, etc., that we call it as object ID, etc. Okay, if you have a detail page. In our case, we do not have any detail page, but you're free to choose any details as such. So I'll try to select here description, and object number I can select. Yes, if you do not want to select, also we can select as none as well. So these are like details. In flexible layout, this makes sense, but in our case, we are not going to use object ID at all. Okay, only we are interested in our entity set and our key. So these two are sufficient for us to generate the table design. Correct. So we should be able to identify why we are selecting those fields in the template as well. You click on this row, and if you navigate to sub page, then the selected product will show object ID, object number, object unit measure, etc. So this we are not currently using right now. Clear? So you select next, then here you can give a name. So sales report, and then okay, no capital letters. UX as a namespace. L'Oreal brands, etc. We'll give it a name. And here you have to important to understand. So deployment, if you're deploying to cloud or on premise, so by selecting yes or no, it will determine where you want to deploy. Okay, so by default, if we are locally we are doing, we can select as no for everything. So first option deployment, yes, it will create a new wizard section where you'll get an option to select whether you want to deploy this application to on-premise or cloud. Okay, and second option, FLP configuration, if yes or no. So if you want to run as a standalone or as a launchpad shell. If you see here, this is a standalone application, so we are not using any launchpad shell or anything. The same application, I can run it this way. So if I go back, so I have something called launchpad shell. So if you come to root folder in the test folder, you if by default if you're running an index file, you can go to the root folder and you can run index file. So if you're running index file, it will run as a standalone application. That means it uses only the index file. But instead, if we are using some, in this case, I'll go to test folder. We have different instances here. So if you want to run using a mock, we can use a mock server, and if you want to use no, not this folder. Um, mm, okay, there is no FLP in this. So in the run configuration, I need to just add one more parameter for that API. Okay, uh, fine. This okay. Here only you have only mock option. I'll tell you these all will discuss about unit testing, etc. So once we build an application, then I'll tell you how to do testing, etc. for the application.
Okay.
Okay, in this case only index we have. I think here I have deployed as a FLP. So I'll tell you what I was just trying to mention. So FLP is nothing but in the launchpad. Here if we select FLP, we want a launchpad shell and you wanted to have a tile, etc. So the semantic object, etc. will define, right? So those we want to define or not, we can directly define in the here from here itself. If I select yes, it will show me those options. And advanced configuration are like theme properties, etc. To select, etc. It will show you. Now just select. In this case, you can select all no as well. But for the case of understanding, now I'll try select all S, and let me show you all the features around where what we have to select in ideal case. Okay. So here we'll choose in this case cloud. So we'll deploy onto cloud our project at the end of the success. So for on-premise, you have to select ABAP. Now we'll select Cloud Foundry. So BTP is nothing but a Cloud Foundry. They call it as Cloud Foundry, Business Technology Platform, or they'll call it a SAP Cloud Platform. All three are same. Okay. Whenever they say Cloud Foundry, it is actually the open source product on top of which SAP has tweaked and they have rebranded as BTP. Just like how Visual Studio Code they made as Business Application Studio, Cloud Foundry they have rebranded as SAP Business Technology Platform, SAP Cloud Platform, etc. It's the API which is running behind. Okay, and I can give here. You can just give it as blank for now. Here we can give it the location. So what location we'll give is I'll show that as well. Cockpit. So we have API endpoint for the cloud. Okay, I think we haven't spent time on BTP, so I'll try to bridge this gap in subsequent exercises. So we here we can create multiple accounts. Okay, in the cloud. So cloud is subscription based. When I say subscription, if I'm working on multiple projects, I can have different subscriptions. So I have two subscriptions here. So if you want to create, you can create new sub account. I think in trial account they'll allow you to create up to two instances. So you can create two instances.
That
So
does that mean that it is sitting in two different servers or it's all in one server?
yes, good question. So you can choose which server you want to host as well. So this server here, it is like cloud. So either AWS or Microsoft. So these are like Amazon and Azure. These are data centers. So data centers, if your customer insists that the business data should reside in only US, it should not go GDPR because of it. It should not be in any other place. Then you have to choose a location. You have to select whichever provider you want and nearest ideally what you have to do is you have to select the nearest location to you because
Mm-hmm.
the server
Yeah.
response etc will be very quick and
Yeah.
good. And here if you see for in case you can have both options. You can select data center, US data center as well as Europe data center, but for your case you should good to select US data center. Okay, so you have to select US East. So even there is a concept called cluster failure as well. So generally this US East itself will have multiple data centers. So if it one fails, it will immediately you'll have your whole data will be copied already available in different copy in different data center. So cloud advantage is if it one system fails also you'll have another availability zone. Okay, that's the advantage of cloud. In on-premise, if your server fails, you have to wait until your server is up and running. So for that, what they do is they maintain two different servers, and immediately they'll change the RFC connection to different endpoint. Okay.
Hmm.
So if you see, your development system is as good as your production system. Okay, your quality system is also as good as your production system. Only thing is the name which differs. And only difference is it contains all real-time data, and here in junk data we store it, but it's the same programs which are running on your production instance and the same programs are running on your dev quality or regression or whatever environment you call it. Okay, all the systems are the same from the layman point of view. And any day if production system goes down, always general practice is all current customers what they do is everybody they maintain three landscapes in general they maintain you in SAP we are familiar, right? So dev QA and regression and prod instances. So generally for all the prod instances you'll have multiple instances. So if the current practice how they follow is if you have local data governance issues, they'll maintain an instance in Europe. They'll maintain a separate SAP server where all the data for Europe region it resides. You have production instance one, which is Europe data will be residing it, and production instance two, which will have US data residing it. So these servers they maintain dedicatedly, and the connection what see application when we are using the application using RFC connection, we establish a connection to respect to systems. That's it. Both have same copy of code, only thing is data residing is different. So we have multiple instances. If this is down, general practices what it is they change the RFC connection to temporarily to different system. They call it as mock systems. So quite often, every major organizations, what they do is every 6 months one they do something called they have different names. They call it as uh, BCP. They call it is business continuity plan. So BCP is just activity where they'll ensure like they'll intentionally they'll shut down one system, production system. So like they'll replicate as if a disaster occurred. Suppose due to some unforeseen circumstances, your production data is lost. So yeah, on next day, your whole business you cannot shut down, right?
Mm.
So you cannot say that my server is gone, boss. So all your data, 10 years data is gone. So you say such a thing, it's like a big disaster for the business. So what they do is this BCP, etc. They'll intentionally remove this standard. They'll make a copy of this production 2 instance into some mock system. They call it as mock production, etc. So and every 6 months once, what they do is they take a copy of current production data and they'll keep it safe place in one different SAP server instance. Just like dev quality product, we have one more copy of product instance. So what they do is, so every 6 months when you're trying to make a copy replication, so if it fails, all you lose is only 6 months data. Of course, even that 6 months data, they can revert back, but it will take time. But at least you can instantly, if it got failed, what the basis team will do is they'll change the RFC connection and they'll point to this particular mock system. So your business is not affected. In real time, it will maybe a 5-10 minutes gap. So immediately they'll restore the system. How come they could have restored so complex things in quite short time is just they're changing the connection to the backup copy they have. This is just a backup copy of production data. So that's the practice they do. But this is not going to be, this is an old practice. Many customers are still on this area. And why I say this old practice is every 6 months you there's a loss of data, etc. But in product in cloud, you have US East if I'm selecting, there are like multiple available zones. If this they use virtual machines, and if this goes down, instantly automatically it will point to the another replicated data. You need not to do any manual activity. You're able to relate or you're able
Yeah,
to.
when I did the AWS certification, I learned a little bit about, this, how that is controlled in the back end. So I can relate to this
So
really
these
well.
are like newer approaches. Now customer think how the thinking is, if AWS itself fails, okay. So the people SAP started giving, sir, we are not saying that you have to store this way. SAP's own data center was called as Neo environment, but Neo environment is not as competitive as Amazon, AWS, or
Yeah,
Azure,
yeah.
Google.
AWS is the market leader, you
Correct.
know.
Uh, so as I mean, 5 years down the lane, things can go. See, some other new leader can emerge, etc. So SAP strategies, they're giving flexible options. Today, if you customer wants them to, sir, we trust AWS, like how previously ERP product Oracle DB they used to use. Okay, there are like many databases. It's not just MySQL server is you have SQL server is there, you have PostgreSQL is there, MongoDB is there. There are like lots of database products are there, but popular product among databases is Oracle DB. Okay, back those in 2005. But the
Yeah,
scenario changed.
yeah, it
SAP
has,
itself is
yeah, it
pushing.
has laid to rest now.
Correct. So things can change, I mean to say. So today AWS, but tomorrow, but SAP is keeping it architecture, no matter which cloud product or customer wants, they are giving. So all they have to do is they made it architecture so easy that today if they want to have they have different services as well to migrate. Even Azure, what Microsoft does is it gives a tool to back up all your data from Amazon Web Service to your Azure. So in a single click, automatically all your, today if you're using AWS, tomorrow if you see that Microsoft is cost effective, you can move all your workloads from AWS to uh, different in very literally few clicks. That is called as DevOps. Okay, so the one who manages between clouds, etc. So idea what I'm trying to tell you is uh, the future is very promising. So we need not to do all the legwork of maintaining backups, etc. And in the cloud space, the tools, etc. are very nice, and It's not, people now they are not yet trusting customers because they hacking etc. If everything data got lost, what to do? For
Mm.
those customers, what they say is, sir, critical data you use use private cloud. Private cloud is dedicated to this particular customer, and nobody will have access to those details etc. And for
Mm.
less use, low cost is public cloud. Public cloud is where the same service provider, multiple vendors can use, or within your organization, different departments can use the same data center to host your data. So similar data you can host. Fine. So I'll come back to our topic. I think we'll continue tomorrow. But crux of is why BTP is going to be popular is, this
Mm.
is, if you ask me, this is very very layman. This is way beyond. SAP cloud stack is very relatively new if you ask me, because I
Mm.
have been working from last 5 years on BTP area. They are changing the names, but crux of it is not actually changing much. I mean,
Yeah, they like to change names.
uh, right. I mean, they're introduced many services. I'm not saying that they're not, but there is no breakthrough product in SAP
Mm.
space. So they're not able to convince the market. So they're acquiring the product. So success factors, Ariba, all are acquired products. SAP,
Mm.
there is no in-house cloud product which is popular among customers.
Mm.
Okay, so that is
Right.
a, so AWS, etc., it's not the case. They have their successful products around AWS, even Azure also they have successful products which are customers. If you see, we have discussed Active Directory. Many customers are using. That is an successful product. If you ask a successful product, uh, SAP is also building products. SAP's equivalent is identity product. SAP Cloud Identity Provider we have IDP, but nobody is IDP. Everybody is using Active Directory. You are
Mm.
able to relate, right? So
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
trying to say is BTP also we have services. This is a PaaS solution, platform as a service. We
yeah.
can build solutions, etc. But these products are not popular, and SAP products are way lagging behind other cloud offerings. Okay. But things can change, I mean to say, anywhere. Uh, Now, how the current direction is, if any of your customers is using it, see if they have to have different instances, data centers, all you have to do is you have to create new sub account. And here, instead of Europe region, if they want to select etc., you can select which region you wanted to have etc., and then you can decide where your data has to reside. Okay, so each instance further, we can have different areas. So here we have the concept of spaces. Okay, how you have different systems. Now we will create you can create a new space, just to give a label, and authorization also you can restrict who all. So for now, for my ID, I'm giving all authorizations, and I can just create a new space called I'll call it as a regression environment, and I can create a new space. So that's it, done. In a single click, I created one complete instance on my cloud. In case of on-premise, you have to have a copy of it. You have to configure. You have to set up all the
Yeah,
environment ready, and it will
yeah.
take basis will tell say, sir, by next week, in 1 week, get you ready. Here, in a click,
Mm.
I'm creating one instance. Okay, and
Impressive.
the endpoint what I'm talking about is, see how do we connect to this particular instance. So this is endpoint. This endpoint tells you, and this is a unique ID, tells you that deploy my data etc. into this particular instance. So we are bifurcating within this or
Mm.
AWS whatever environment we have selected. Within that we are see these are the environment instance details. So further if you want to see, so in this case we need not look at what data center etc. That will not come into our picture at all, because
Yeah. Right
those
now,
are
in my
on days.
workspace, basis is struggling to set up the Cloud Foundry. I've been trying to ask for authorization to be able to at least add a tile or remove it. They haven't been able to give me that, and then they excuses this. Oh, we have not able to set Cloud Foundry.
Okay.
It's been weeks.
Okay. Maybe I think many of the people they don't know. I mean how things work. So that's not, see, this is completely new things, and they may not be coming from this whole things. So that is very much understandable. But pretty much things in cloud are very easy if you ask me. Okay, things
Yeah.
are not at all complicated. Only
Yeah.
thing is you need to understand how to do things. Then you are good with
Yeah.
going ahead. And here also things got changed. I'm not denying that here if people who have visited this 2 years back, the things are not the same. Okay, so now here. Okay, I'll come back. So in this case, if you see what all instances are running, etc., you can see here. Okay, let me go back one step. So here, once we deploy, I'll explain you more details how to create a key and how do we restrict authorization, and the launchpad instances, how do we deploy, etc. It's just it will take you 3-4 clicks. That's it. Your launchpad cloud shell will be ready, and you can deploy all your apps. Okay, uh, that is very easy process. We can do it very easy. But now they have introduced something called public key encryption. Because of that, it is restricting for authorizations, but I'll show you how to overcome those things as well. Okay, let me. So see, in this instance now all these are available. If you see, ABAP environment is there, API is there, blockchain is there. So this cloud space, what are we using it? So this API endpoint, you can do all these things. Now all we use is, we use only 3 services in this whole access: launchpad service to deploy our Fury launchpad tile, etc. And use they're like 2 services. Portal is old, launchpad is new, and we are already using business application studio, and rest of many other things are there, but these all are services are there. We'll use theme design also, we'll use, and adapt UI we have used, that is nothing but UFI flexibility service. So this is how the S4 HANA instance which you used, it is running on some BTP in this particular instance itself. So whenever you create a sign up, they create one new subscription account and they'll map it to this account. So this is how they'll enable the service, then you'll be able to use it. So this is how cloud it looks. Now this endpoint actually we have to specify in our application. I'm coming back to our application scenario. So here instead of none, I'll select the endpoint. You're understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now actually, if ABAP environment, you can give it your which target URL, client, username, password, etc. You'll give, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have GUI
It's
login. What
the
a login we have.
on-premise, like the
Sorry. Yeah.
on-premise, right?
Correct. On-premise we give what system we want to have, etc. Then in case of cloud, all we have to give is, we have to give this particular dish endpoint. So this
Mm.
endpoint will have lots of environments beyond it. So this is how the endpoint environment looks, and this is how our dev spaces looks in the cloud, and this is how we have to specify it. So all we are talking about just this single URL. Why we are using this URL and which URL to use? Reason is, you have to select whichever data center you want. You can create your space, which space you want to deploy. You have to specify. Then you are done. Now for launchpad creation, here I'll create I think in deployment class we have discussed about this. So I'm just creating directly. We have to go to, if you remember, UI to SEM object, we have to go to the GUI transaction code for creating semantic object / UI to SEM object. Here we can create straight away from here. Of course, this is not connected to any system. In the previous step, if you are connected to any system, automatically it will create semantic objects into those respective T codes. For this case, I'll just give a dummy value. It won't be useful, but I'm just giving. So this is how we have to create a semantic object action. So semantic object action are like masking or not to allow our application to be. So nobody should identify that this is our application name, etc. So to mask it, etc., and to create cross-app navigation, we use semantic object. I'll give sales report. I'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll continue. So I'll so finish we do. So this should generate us one instance, and I'll share this GitHub URLs as well. You can meanwhile try to uh, create if as well,
Mm.
and I'll explain in detail how we are using some more features around this.
Mm.
So idea is, cloud deployment, it's not very tough. It is way easier than your on-premise. And we'll deploy our application tomorrow as well into one of these instances, and we'll understand the rest of things. Okay. So we'll meet tomorrow then. Yeah. Thank you. Any questions? Anything?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. So these are
Thank you.
all known things. Just we are trying to understand end-to-end perspective. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.